deserve to be in here for the rest of my life. I do, I know I do. I know I don't deserve to be out walking around with everybody else in normal society. I did something horrible that is unacceptable, and I realize that. But I don't deserve to die for the actions of 3 individuals.
Christa Gail Pike, now 49 years old, has spent nearly 30 years on Tennessee's death row, the only woman facing execution in the state. No execution date is currently set, but her fate hangs in the balance as legal battles continue. On January 12, 1995, Christa Pike, at just 18 years, lured Colleen Slemmer to a secluded spot and unleashed unimaginable horror, slashing a pentagram into her chest and smashing her skull with asphalt as she begged for life. What drove Christa to such cruelty? To understand how she ended up here, we must rewind to a troubled beginning that set the stage for a tragic life. Before we proceed, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. We love to hear from you as we dig into this story together. Christa Pike was born on March 10, 1976, in Beckley, West Virginia, a small town where her life started on shaky ground. Her parents, Carissa Hansen and Emil Glenn Pike, had a stormy relationship marked by infidelity and instability. They married, divorced after Hansen's cheating came to light, and briefly remarried after her suicide attempt. But their home was far from stable. Christa and her older half-sister faced neglect early on. An aunt later recalled a disturbing image: infant Christa crawling through piles of dog feces in a filthy house while her mother partied, ignoring news of her toddler's severe seizures. This neglect left deep scars, shaping a childhood filled with chaos. Christa's paternal grandmother offered a flicker of stability, often caring for her and providing the love Christa later said was the only real affection she ever knew. But that light dimmed when her grandmother died in 1988, when Christa was just 12. The loss was devastating, and Christa's life spiraled further. That same year, she attempted suicide by overdosing on acetaminophen, a cry for help that went largely unanswered. Her mother testified that Christa received some psychiatric care afterward, but consistent support was absent, leaving her to navigate a turbulent adolescence alone. The assault was merciless. Christa and her accomplices beat Colleen, punching and kicking her as she pleaded for her life. They forced her to remove her blouse and bra, claiming it was to prevent her from running. When Colleen tried to escape, Christa chased her down and threw a rock that struck her in the head. As Colleen fell, the attack grew more savage. Christa and Tatterall slashed her body with a knife, carving a pentagram into her chest and another on her forehead, symbols tied to their occult obsession. Colleen's throat was cut multiple times, and her body was battered with large chunks of broken asphalt. In her taped confession, Christa chillingly recalled how Colleen kept talking, begging, and groaning, saying she wouldn't shut up. Each plea only fueled Christa's rage. She admitted to repeatedly striking Colleen's head with asphalt, fracturing her skull. In a haunting moment, as Colleen lay dying, Christa leaned over and asked, "Colleen, do you know who's doing this to you?" The question was cruel, a final twist of the knife in a young woman's fading moments. Colleen's suffering was unimaginable. The emotional weight of her death crushed her family, especially her mother, Mae Martinez, who later said, "My heart breaks every single day because I keep reliving it." Colleen, described as enthusiastic and trusting, had her dreams of a brighter future stolen in an act of unimaginable cruelty. The brutality of the crime shocked even seasoned investigators, with lead detective Randy York calling it unique in its savagery. After the attack, Christa, Tatterall, and Shadala left Colleen's body on a pile of dirt and debris, her clothing scattered in nearby bushes. Christa took a piece of Colleen's skull as a gruesome souvenir, a fragment she later showed off to other Job Corps students. Around 10:15 p.m., the trio returned to the Job Corps Center without Colleen, their absence noted in the dormitory logbook. Later that night, Christa went to Kim Iloilo's room and bragged about the killing, proudly displaying the skull fragment. She showed no remorse, even reenacting parts of the murder for others, as if it were a twisted badge of honor. The horrific murder of Colleen Slemmer came to light on the morning of January 13, 1995, when a University of Tennessee grounds worker stumbled across her brutalized body near the agriculture campus's steam plant in Knoxville, Tennessee. At first, he thought it was an animal carcass, but the grim reality soon hit. A young woman had been savagely killed. The body, nude from the waist up and covered in dirt, twigs, and countless wounds, was identified as 19-year-old Colleen Slemmer, a Job Corps student. The scene was gruesome. Her skull was fractured, a pentagram carved into her chest, and her throat slashed multiple times. Police were stunned by the brutality. What kind of person could commit such a crime? Investigators quickly focused on the Knoxville Job Corps program, where Colleen was enrolled. Christa's bold and chilling confession led Kim Iloilo to alert Job Corps staff, who contacted the police. By January 14th, authorities took Christa, her boyfriend Tadarrell Shipp, and their accomplice Shadala Peterson into custody for questioning. But would Christa's boldness be her undoing? Forensic evidence was critical in linking Christa to the crime. Police recovered blood-stained clothes from Christa's and Tadarrell's rooms at the Job Corps dorm, which DNA analysis later confirmed matched Colleen's blood. A box cutter and a meat cleaver, believed to be the murder weapons, were identified based on Christa's confession and the nature of Colleen's wounds, though the exact weapons were not recovered. At a Texaco station on Cumberland Avenue, investigators found Colleen's identification cards and a pair of black gloves in a trash can, discarded by Christa in an attempt to cover her tracks. The gloves were significant. Christa admitted to wearing them during the attack to avoid leaving fingerprints. Most damning was the skull fragment Christa kept as a trophy, which forensic experts confirmed was human and consistent with Colleen's injuries. This gruesome keepsake directly tied her to the murder scene. Christa's prior criminal history, though minor, strengthened the case. Her history of violence, including chasing her mother's boyfriend with a butter knife and allegations of molesting a half-sister, painted a picture of an unstable teenager capable of escalating to extreme acts. These incidents, combined with her boasts and the physical evidence, made her a prime suspect. But could she talk her way out of it? When questioned, Christa initially claimed she, Tadarrell, and Shadala only meant to scare Colleen, not kill her. In her taped confession on January 14, 1995, she admitted to luring Colleen to the secluded spot under the pretense of smoking marijuana to settle their feud. She described the attack in chilling detail but insisted it wasn't premeditated, saying things got out of hand. She blamed Tadarrell for some of the violence, claiming he carved the pentagram on Colleen's chest. Her defense leaned on her troubled upbringing, arguing that her traumatic childhood and borderline personality disorder drove her actions, not cold-blooded intent. But would the jury buy this story? The prosecution dismantled Christa's claims with overwhelming evidence. Her confession, given after waiving her Miranda rights, was played in court, revealing her lack of remorse. She even laughed while describing Colleen's pleas. Witnesses, including Kim Iloilo, testified about Christa's boasts and the skull fragment, contradicting her claim of an unplanned act. Forensic evidence, especially the blood on her clothes and the discarded gloves, proved she was an active participant. The pentagram carvings linked to Christa's occult obsession further undermined her defense, showing premeditation and intent. Shadala Peterson, who turned informant, corroborated the prosecution's timeline, testifying that Christa planned the attack out of jealousy over Tadarrell. The trial, held in March 1996 in Knox County, was a media sensation. Christa's defense team, led by William C. Talman, called her Aunt Carrie Ross to testify about her abusive childhood, hoping to sway the jury toward leniency. But the prosecution, led by District Attorney Randall E. Nichols, painted Christa as a remorseless killer who orchestrated a torture murder. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours on March 29, 1996, finding Christa guilty of premeditated first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. The next day, March 30th, 1996, during the sentencing phase, the jury found 2 aggravating factors. The murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, and was committed to avoid prosecution. They sentenced her to death by electrocution for the murder and gave her a consecutive 25-year sentence for the conspiracy charge. At 20, she became the youngest woman on death row in the U.S. post-Furman. As Christa heard the verdict, she showed little emotion, but her fate was sealed. Christa Gail Pike, sentenced to death in March 1996 at age 20, has spent nearly 3 decades on Tennessee's death row, primarily at the Deborah K. Johnson Rehabilitation Center, formerly the Tennessee Prison for Women in Nashville. As the only woman on Tennessee's death row, her life in confinement has been marked by isolation, violence, and fleeting moments of reflection. But has the passage of time changed her? Life on death row for Christa is a stark contrast to the chaos of her early years. Housed in a small single cell, she faces the strict routines of maximum security confinement. Her days are monotonous: wake-up calls at dawn, meals delivered through a slot, and limited time outside her cell. Death row inmates are allowed 1 hour of recreation daily, often in a caged outdoor area, and Christa has access to books, writing materials, and a small TV or radio per prison policies. She's been known to draw and write letters, but her behavior has often been far from peaceful. Early in her sentence, Christa showed a defiant streak, clashing with the rigid prison environment. Guards described her as manipulative and prone to outbursts, traits that echoed her volatile past. Did she think she could control her new world as she once tried to control those around her? Her interactions with others have been turbulent. In 2001, Christa made headlines when she and fellow inmate Natasha Cornett, a convicted murderer, attempted to strangle another prisoner with a shoelace. The attack was stopped, but it showed Christa's capacity for violence persisted. In 2008, she assaulted a guard, earning additional charges and a reputation as a high-risk inmate. These incidents strained her relationships with prison staff, who keep a close watch on her. Yet some reports suggest she formed bonds with a few inmates, sharing stories or letters, perhaps seeking the connection she lacked growing up. Her interactions hint at a complex personality, part defiant, part desperate for human contact. But what drives her to lash out? Remorse has been a murky topic. In early interviews, Christa expressed little regret, even claiming she felt powerful after the murder. Over time, however, she's made statements suggesting some guilt. During a 2007 clemency hearing, her attorneys argued she was a changed woman, citing therapy and psychological evaluations that diagnosed her with borderline personality disorder and PTSD from childhood abuse. Christa herself wrote letters to the court, claiming she was not the same person and begging for a chance at life. Yet her violent incidents in prison undermined these claims, leaving doubts about her sincerity. Has she truly grappled with the pain she caused Colleen's family, or is it all an act to escape her fate? Religion has played a role in her prison life. Christa has spoken about finding faith, participating in Bible studies, and working with prison chaplains. Some sources say she's leaned on Christianity to cope with the isolation of death row, but details are scarce, and her violent behavior often overshadows these efforts. Her spiritual journey, if genuine, seems to clash with her ongoing struggles to control her impulses. Can faith change someone with such a dark history? Appeals have been a constant in Christa's story. Since her 1996 conviction, her legal team has filed multiple appeals, arguing that her youth, mental health issues, and abusive childhood warranted a lighter sentence. In 1998, the Tennessee Supreme Court upheld her conviction and death sentence, finding the evidence overwhelming. Later appeals, including a 2001 federal habeas corpus petition and a 2011 motion for a new trial based on ineffective counsel, were denied. In 2012, she sought clemency, citing her traumatic past, but the Tennessee Board of Parole rejected it. As of 2025, no execution date is set, and her appeals continue, with her attorneys recently arguing that Tennessee's lethal injection protocol is unconstitutional. Each failed appeal brings her closer to the possibility of execution, yet she persists. Will her legal battles ever change her fate? The prison environment itself is a heavy burden. Death row is a place of silence and tension, where the reality of impending execution looms over every moment. Guards maintain strict control, and the isolation can break even the toughest inmates. For Christa, the years have been a mix of defiance, violence, and small attempts at redemption. She's grown from a volatile teenager into a middle-aged woman, now 49, but the shadow of Colleen's murder defines her. Her life in jail is a stark reminder of the consequences of her actions, yet her story raises questions about rehabilitation, mental health, and the death penalty itself. Christa Pike's life on death row is a complex tale of violence, regret, and an ongoing fight for survival. Her crime was horrific, but her troubled past and mental struggles add layers to her story. Does her time in prison show a changed woman, or is justice best served by her sentence? What do you think? Has justice been served, or does Christa's case reveal deeper flaws in the system? Share your thoughts below and hit that subscribe button for more.